Good afternoon, everyone, especially to you, Sir John, and to my co-masterants, good afternoon. I am Cassandra de los Santos Cordelia, and today I will discuss the up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies in special education. So these are teaching approaches that are supported by research and proven to help learners, especially those with disabilities, to achieve better learning outcomes. So the first one, let's talk about the evidence-based practices, or the EBPs. So these are teaching methods and strategies that have been tested through research and proven to be effective in improving student learning. And according to Cook and Adam 2013, teachers should use instructional strategies that are supported by scientific evidence instead of relying only on personal or trial and error. And using evidence based practices helps us teachers make informed decisions and increases the chances that learners will succeed. So, for example, instead of giving the same activities to every learner, us teacher may use visual aids, hands-on activities, or any step-by-step demonstrations because as research shows that these strategies helps learner understand lessons better and it helps them to stay engaged. So the next point is improving outcomes for learners with disabilities. The goal of evidence-based practices is not only to improve academic performance, but also to strengthen communication, behavior, social skills, and independence. And according to Halahan, Kaufman, and Pullen 2022, learners achieve better outcomes when teachers consistently used research-based strategies that match their individual needs. So these practices also help learners participate more actively in classroom activities and become more confident. For example, using picture schedules can help learners with autism understand daily routines. It will reduce their anxiety and complete tasks more independently. Now let us discuss the inclusive and equitable education. Inclusive education means that all learners, regardless of their abilities or disabilities, have the opportunity to learn together in the same classroom. And according to UNESCO 2020, equity means giving learners the support they need to succeed, rather than treating everyone exactly the same. So, for example, as we can see in this picture, the left side shows equality. Everyone is given the same box to stand on, right? Although they all receive the same support. Not everyone can see over the fence because they have different heights and needs. And on the right side, we see equity. Instead of giving everyone the same support, each person receives the support they need. Look, the taller the child doesn't need a box. The shorter naman nga kaning child is given two boxes, and the child using a wheelchair is provided with a ramp. So this allows everyone to enjoy the same view. Just like in education, equity means providing accommodations and support based on each learner's individual needs so that everyone has an equal opportunity to achieve the learning goals. So another example lang, if one learner needs extra time, visual instruction, assistive technology, or adapted learning materials to complete an activity. And providing those supports helps learners participate successfully alongside with their classmates, right? So these create a classroom where every learner feels valued, included, and capable of learning. Now that we've discussed the importance of evidence based practices and how they promote better outcomes and inclusive education, Let us now move on to some specific evidence-based strategies that teachers can use to effectively support learners with diverse needs. Let's talk about the evidence-based strategies for learners. So the first strategy is the Universal Design for Learning, or the UDL. And according to CAS 2024, UDL encourages teachers to provide different ways for learners to access information, participate, and show what they have learned. So for me lang as a kindergarten teacher, I can teach shapes using flashcards, Play-Doh, mga matching games so that every learner has a way to succeed, and also they will engage po sila, especially kids, right, nga more on playing pa. And I also make sure nga while playing, they are also learning. Next is the differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction means adjusting lessons based on learners' abilities, interest, and learning needs. And according to Tomlinson 2017, not all learners learn in the same way. For example, one learner may answer only orally, while other may complete a matching activity. Although the activities are different, they are working toward the same objective. Now let us talk about the positive behavior support. So positive behavior support focuses on encouraging appropriate behavior through positive reinforcement. And according to the Council for Exceptional Children 2023, recognizing good behavior encourages learner to repeat it. So for example, kanang mo praise taong learner, kanang for raising their hand before speaking. It promotes a positive classroom behavior. Also, ang bata anak, they feel happy and they more likely to repeat na the behavior since imo man silang i-praise. You know, especially bata, and then mag-give pa jud ka og stars after. Because in just one star, it can brighten a child's day na jud. That's why it's important for us teachers nga i-praise pod ang bata para magtimaan ang bata nga ay maayo day akong gibuhat. So that's it. Next is the assistive technology. We're all familiar with this, right? Assistive technology includes tools and devices that help learners participate in learning. And according to UNESCO 2020, these technologies reduce barriers to education. For example, kanang mga hearing aids, communication boards, captions, mga text-to-speech application is makahelp na sa learners to access the classroom instruction. And aside from supporting learners, research also tells us that teachers play an important role in making inclusive education successful. So let's talk about the evidence-based strategies for teachers. So the first strategy is continuous professional development. Teachers should continue learning throughout their careers because education is constantly changing. New teaching methods, technologies, and research are introduced regularly. So, us teachers need to update our knowledge and skills. And according to the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers, DepEd Order Number 42 Series of 2017, professional development helps teachers improve their teaching practices and provide quality education for all learners. By continuously learning, teachers become more confident and effective in meeting the diverse needs of their students. For example, kaning mga attend seminars, mga training on inclusive education can introduce new strategies and intervention that can be applied in the classroom to better support our learners with disabilities. Also, kaning pag-take natong masters is one way of improving ourselves, right? Para makagain tag more knowledge nga mahatag nato para sa mga bata nga nagkinahanglan. So that's why it's very important for us nga to improve ourselves also, because we cannot teach what we do not know. The second strategy is collaboration. Collaboration means working together with SPED teachers, therapists, school leaders, and parents to provide the best support for learners. And according to Friend and Cook 2020, collaboration improves learning outcomes because everyone shares their knowledge and expertise. And because when us teachers communicate and work as a team, we can better understand a learner's need, ang ilang strength, and also their progress. For example lang, if a learner is makareceive og speech therapy, so the classroom teacher and the speech therapist mag-coordinate og activities that can reinforce communication skills sa both in therapy sessions and in the classroom. Parents can also support these activities at home in creating consistency in the learner's development. So, another important strategy is a reflective teaching. So, reflective teaching means evaluating our own teaching practices to determine what worked well and what needs improvement. And according to Haiti 2023, teachers who regularly reflect on their instruction become more effective and improve student learning. Also, reflections allows us teachers to identify if successful bottom strategies and make changes when learners experience difficulties. So, for example lang, after I teach a lesson, I always ask myself, did my learners understand the activity? Mag-ask po ko nga, were they actively participating? Di ba mahalata mo guna nimo? And if I notice that many students struggled with the lesson, I will modify my teaching strategies. I will use different instructional materials or provide additional practice during the next class. The last strategy is data-based decision making. So this means using assessment results, classroom observations, and learner performance to guide instructional decisions. And according to Cook and Adam 2013, data helps teachers select appropriate interventions and monitor learners' progress over time. So instead of relying on assumptions, teachers use evidence-based to determine what learners need and how instruction can be improved. So, for example lang kaning, if assessment results show that a learner is struggling with letter recognition, so we can provide additional alphabet activities like visual aids or kaning one-on-one practice before introducing sa difficult reading lessons. So using data helps ensure that every learner receives appropriate support based on their individual needs. So now that we've discussed several evidence-based strategies for teachers, let's move on to another important factor in successful teaching, the kind of learning environment we create. An inclusive and supportive classroom helps learners feel safe, valued, and motivated to participate in learning. Learning environment. So first is safe. A safe classroom means that learners feel both physically and emotionally secure while they are in the school. When learners feel safe, they are more confident to ask questions and also maka-express na sila their ideas and participate in activities and make mistakes without fear of being embarrassed. A positive and secure environment also helps learners focus better on their lessons. So, kaning mga teachers nga nag-establish of clear classroom rules that promote respect, kindness, and cooperation while preventing bullying and other behaviors that may make learner feel unsafe. The second characteristic is an inclusive classroom. An inclusive classroom welcomes every learner regardless of their ability, disability, culture, language, or background. And according to UNESCO 2020, inclusion ensures that all learners can participate meaningfully in school and have equal opportunities to learn. Teachers recognize that every learner is unique and may require different kinds of support. For example, kaning learners with disabilities participate in classroom activity together with their peers whenever appropriate, while receiving the accommodations or assistance they need to succeed. Another important characteristic is accessibility. An accessible classroom means removing barriers that may prevent learners from fully participating in learning. Teachers provide different support so that all learners can access lessons and classroom activities. These supports may include kaning mga visual schedules, large print learning materials, captions for videos, mga assistive technology, or flexible seating arrangements. By making learning accessible, teacher ensures that every learner has the opportunity to participate comfortably and successfully. Lastly is a respectful classroom. Respectful classroom values every learner's uniqueness and encourages positive relationships among everyone in the classroom. Teachers create an environment where differences are accepted and appreciated. Learners are encouraged to show kindness, patience, empathy, and respect toward one another. When learners feel respected, they develop confidence, build healthy relationships, and become more willing to participate in learning. So, kani pong teachers nga nag-encourage of respectful communication, celebrate each learner's strength, and remind students to appreciate and support one another. Now that we've discussed the importance of creating a safe, inclusive, accessible, and respectful learning environment, let's move on to another essential part of effective teaching, using appropriate instructional strategies and fair assessment practices that support the learning of all students. Instruction and assessment. The first one is the explicit teaching. This teaching approach means that the teacher explains the lesson in a clear, direct, and step-by-step manner. So instead of expecting learners to figure things out on their own, we first model or demonstrate what we want them to do. So for example, before asking learners to complete a worksheet, I will first show them how to answer one item. And by seeing the process first, learners become more confident and are less likely to become confused. Next, we have the multisensory activities. Another effective strategy is using multisensory activities because this approach involves more than one sense, such as seeing, hearing, touching, and moving. And according to Halahan and colleagues 2022, engaging multiple senses helps learners understand and remember concepts more effectively. For example, instead of simply showing a letter, learners can trace it in the sand while saying its sound aloud. And this makes learning more meaningful and enjoyable, especially for young learners and those with diverse learning needs. Next are visual supports. Many learners understand information better when they can see it. Visual supports include pictures, charts, symbols, schedules, and graphic organizers that make lessons easier to follow. For example, I can use picture cards to teach classroom routines or kaning mga flashcards when introducing mga new vocabularies. Because these visual help learners stay focused, understand instruction more easily, and remember important information. Another important strategy is formative assessment. So this takes place while learning is happening, not just as the end of a lesson. It allows teachers to check learners' understanding and make adjustments right away, if needed. And for example, I might ask mga simple questions, observe learners during an activity, or use a quick exit ticket kaning gibuhat ni Sir sa tuwa So these small assessments help me know how to understand the lesson and who may need additional support. Next is the performance task give learners the opportunity to show what they have learned through meaningful activities rather than relying only on written tests. This is especially helpful for young children because they often learn best by doing. For example, instead of answering questions on paper, learners can sort objects by color or shapes, mga mag-build of patterns using blocks, or demonstrate a skill during class hours. So these activities allow teachers to assess learning in a more authentic and engaging way. And lastly, we have the individualized assessment. So every learner has different strengths, abilities, and learning needs. So assessment should also be flexible. Some learners may express their understanding better through speaking, and while others may perform better when hands on activities or visual tasks. So, by providing different ways for learners to demonstrate their knowledge, we can assess, kita teacher, we can assess them more fairly and accurately while supporting their individual needs. Now let's move on to the evidence-based pedagogy. The first principle is student-centered learning. In this approach, learners become the focus of the teaching and learning process. Rather than simply listening to the teacher, they actively participate in exploring ideas, solving problems, and discovering new concepts. For example, instead of only explaining a lesson, as teacher can prepare hands-on activities where learners manipulate materials and learn through experience. So this keeps them engaged and encourages independent thinking. So another important practice is the active participation. Learners understand concepts better when they are actively involved instead of just sitting and listening. So, as teachers, we should provide opportunities for learners to answer questions, participate in games, especially mga kids, perform simple experiments, and join classroom discussions. So, these interactive activities make learning more enjoyable and help learners develop confidence while improving their understanding of the lesson. Next is cooperative learning. So this strategy encourages learners to work together in pairs or small groups to accomplish a shared goal. While working together, they develop communication, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. For example, learners can complete puzzles, create simple classroom projects, or participate in group activities where everyone contributes. Cooperative learning also teaches learners the importance of respecting and helping one another. So the last principle is family involvement. Learning does not stop when learners leave the classroom. According to Frein and Cook 2020, strong collaboration between teachers and families leads to better learning outcomes. Parents and guardians play an important role by reinforcing lessons at home. For example, they can practice reading together, review classroom activities, or help their child complete simple learning tasks. When teachers and family work together, learners receive consistent support both at home and in school. Next is leadership in inclusive education. The first responsibility of school leaders is to support teachers. Teaching learners with diverse needs can be challenging, so teachers need guidance, encouragement, and regular feedback. School leaders should create an environment where teachers feel supported and confident in implementing inclusive practices. because when teachers receive the support they need, they are better able to provide quality instruction for all learners. And another important role of school leaders is to provide continuous professional development. Education is constantly evolving, and teachers need opportunities to learn new evidence based strategies and inclusive teaching practices. For example, kaning schools can organize workshops, seminars, or training sessions on inclusive education, differentiated instruction, and classroom management. Because continuous learning helps teachers improve their skills and better meet the needs of diverse learners. Next is allocate resources. School leaders should also allocate resources that support inclusive education. This means ensuring that teachers and learners have access to the materials they need for effective learning. For example, kanang schools can provide visual aids, learning manipulatives, assistive devices, or adaptive instructional materials whenever possible. Even simple resources can make a significant difference in helping learners participate actively and succeed in the classroom. Another key responsibility is to promote collaboration. Inclusive education works best when teachers, parents, therapists, specialists, and school administrators work together toward a common goal by sharing ideas, discussing learner progress, and planning interventions together. They can provide more effective and consistent support. Collaboration also strengthens the partnership between the school and family, which greatly benefits the learner. Finally, school leaders should build an inclusive school culture where every learner feels respected, accepted, and valued, regardless of their abilities or backgrounds. Inclusion is more than simply placing learners in the same classroom. It is about creating a safe and welcoming environment where everyone has equal opportunities to participate and learn. When a school embraces inclusivity, learners develop respect, empathy, and appreciation for diversity, making the school community stronger and more supportive for everyone. So, in conclusion, evidence based practices plays an important role in improving the quality of special education. By using research supported strategies, teachers, school leaders, and families can work together to create inclusive classrooms where every learner has the opportunity to learn and succeed. My reflection of the University of Visayas core value, empathy. Working on this report made me realize that empathy is what brings evidence based practices to life. Research helps us identify effective teaching strategies, but empathy helps us understand why those strategies matter for each learner. Because evidence may recommend using visual supports, differentiated instruction, or formative assessment, but empathy reminds us that every learner has unique strengths, challenges, and ways of learning. Also, this report made me realize that inclusive education is more than simply applying research-based strategies. It is about seeing every learner as an individual who deserves respect, patience, understanding, and equal opportunities to succeed. As educators, we should not only ask, what does the research recommend? But also, what does this learner need to reach their full potential? An educator, I want to live out the University of the Visayas core value, empathy, by combining evidence-based practices with genuine care and compassion. Because I believe that effective teaching is not only measured by academic achievement, but also by our ability to make every learner feel seen, heard, valued, and included. Because at the end of the day, every child deserves not only a good teacher, but also a teacher who truly understands and believes in them. Thank you. So that's it for my report. And here's my reference essay.